This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The director of the Office of the International Labour Organization in Algeria, Halim Hamzawi, has hailed the quality of relations link in Algeria and the organization, commending the level of efforts made in implementing projects of common interest. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned the Zionist entity that he could refer the matter to the International Court of Justice if it does not reverse several laws targeting the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA. The United Nations has renewed its call for the protection of civilians in Sudan following the deaths of dozens of civilians due to escalating violence in several regions of the country. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm your host, Mr. Sharfi. The Minister of Labour, Employment and Social Security, Abdelhak Saihi, has received in Algiers the Director of the Office of International Labour Organization, ILO, in Algeria, Halim Hamzawi, as part of efforts aimed at strengthening bilateral cooperation and exchanging views on ways to develop partnerships in the areas of occupational health and safety, social protection, social dialogue and employment. More details with Jamal Salmani.
During the meeting, Mr. Hamzawi hailed the quality of relations link in Algeria and the International Labour Organization, also commending the level of cooperation established with the Ministry of Labour, Employment and Social Security, as well as the efforts made in implementing projects of common interest. For his part, Mr. Saihi affirmed that the sector grants paramount importance to strengthening social protection for all categories of workers, particularly in occupational health and safety, through 3 specialized bodies, while highlighting the national legislative framework prohibiting child labor. He also stressed the state's deep reforms reflecting the commitment of the public authorities to social justice and equal opportunities, and noted that Algeria continues to expand social protection while ensuring a safe working environment and strengthening social dialogue. On this occasion, the director of the International Labour Organization Office praised Algeria's efforts in labour, employment and social protection, reaffirming the organization's readiness to support related projects and stressed the importance of continued coordination to address socio-economic challenges and promote sustainable development. The meeting provided an opportunity to exchange views on strengthening bilateral cooperation, particularly in social security and social policies, in line with the state's social development priorities and care for workers amid current global economic changes.
The Minister of Communication, Mr. Zohir Bouamama, has stated here in Algiers that the draft basic law for journalists is currently at the General Secretariat of the Government for study, while supervising the opening of a study day entitled Respecting Copyright, a Pillar of Modern Media, organized by the Ministry of Communication in coordination with the National Office of Copyright and Related Rights. Mr. Bouamama noted that the draft executive decree on the journalist's basic law, the professional card, and the President's Award have been finalized and are now at the General Secretariat of the Government.
The draft executive decree, including the basic law concerning journalists, and a draft executive decree specifying the conditions, procedures, and the authority that issues the national card for professional journalists, in addition to revising Presidential Decree number 1533, which established the President of the Republic's Award for Professional Journalists, aimed at encouraging and promoting media performance by reviewing the award's monetary value, the conditions and procedures for granting it, and the categories eligible to participate in the competition. All texts have been worked on, and their drafts and projects have been finalized at the ministry level and are available at the General Secretariat of the Government.
He also emphasized the role of Algerian journalists in protecting cultural heritage, which attracts both amateurs and plunderers, but remains ineffective, preserving the creativity and innovation of their predecessors. On the occasion, several lectures were presented focusing on the legal framework for the copyright protection and the importance of continuous training for journalists. The Minister of Foreign Trade and Export Promotion Kamal Rizig has supervised in Iran the launch of the first iron sheet export operations by the Tusaili Group during the year 2026 as part of a visit he paid to the group. A member of the group's board, Alp Topgulu, said the operation involves loading 4 ships, 3 from Erzurum and 1 from Iran, bound for Poland, Latvia, Italy and Tunisia with 22,000 tons of iron products, mainly hot-rolled sheets and iron wire, generated nearly $13.5 million, while the group is expanding to produce cold-rolled, galvanized and coated sheets for household appliances and the automotive industry. During the visit, Mr. Rizig stressed completing the expansion quickly, prioritizing the national market over exports, and said the exhibition showcases a small sample of high-quality exports across sectors to 4 continents, reflecting government reforms under the President's program since 2020.
The first exhibition of exported products is only a small sample of the products that various institutions and different economic operators export abroad. As you have noticed with me, there is a diversity of these products across multiple sectors, which are exported to 4 continents. Thankfully, this sample on display today is characterized by high quality, and it is the result and fruit of the reforms carried out by the government in implementation of the program of Mr. the President. Since 2020, this sound policy has borne fruit today, and we take pride in and are proud of the quality of these exported products.
In the same context, Alp Topgulu affirmed that these high-tech investments will produce high-quality iron with added value, reducing imports and boosting exports, and announced that cold-rolled sheet units will start operating next September, praising public authorities' close monitoring for the export file. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned the Zionist entity that he could refer the matter to the International Court of Justice (ICJ) if it does not reserve or reverse the law targeting the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees (UNRWA) and does not return the assets and the priorities or properties seized from this agency. More details with Jamal Salmani.
In a letter dated January 8 addressed to the so-called Netanyahu, Mr. Guterres indicated that the United Nations cannot remain indifferent to actions taken by the Zionist entity which are in direct violation of its obligations under international law. They must be annulled without delay. The Zionist parliament voted in October 2024 for a law prohibiting UNRWA from operating in the occupied Palestinian territories and forbidding any contact between officials and the agency. This law was later amended last December to prohibit the provision of electricity or water to its facilities. At the beginning of January, Antonio Guterres had already condemned the adoption by the Zionist parliament of amendments to a law aimed at suspending UNRWA's activities, considering that they aim to further weaken its operational capacity. He had stated in a communique cited by his spokesperson Stefan Dujarric that the amendments sought to further impede UNRWA's ability to operate and carry out its mandated activities, and that the law and its amendments were incompatible with the status and the applicable international legal framework of UNRWA and needed to be immediately repealed. Mr. Guterres had reminded that UNRWA is an integral part of the UN system and is fully covered by the Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations, which extends to its assets, facilities, officials and staff.
UNICEF spokesperson James Elder has said in a United Nations briefing via video from Gaza that more than 100 children have been killed in Gaza since the ceasefire in October due to violations of the agreement by the Israeli occupation, which means nearly one boy or girl has been killed every day during this period.
More than 100 children have been killed in Gaza since the ceasefire of early October. That's roughly a girl or a boy killed here every day during a ceasefire. So life in Gaza remains suffocating. Survival remains conditional. Whilst the bombings and the shootings have slowed, have reduced during the ceasefire, they have not stopped. So what the world now calls calm would be considered a crisis anywhere else. And unfortunately, the ceasefire has had an unintended effect. Palestinian children have disappeared from view. Since the ceasefire, UNICEF has reported the deaths of 60 boys and 40 girls killed in the Gaza Strip. This 100 figure, it only reflects incidents where sufficient details have been available to record those children killed. So the actual number of Palestinian children killed is expected to be higher.
He also recalled that the ongoing restrictions on essentials by the Israeli occupying authorities are still hampering the efforts of UNICEF to provide services for Palestinian children.
At the same time, as airstrikes continue, severe restrictions remain on essentials in Gaza, from medical supplies to cooking gas, from fuel to parts for life-saving water and sanitation systems. However, even with these modest gains, 2 years of war has left life for Gaza's children unimaginably hard. They still live in fear. The psychological damage remains untreated, and it's becoming deeper and harder to heal the longer this goes on. A ceasefire that slows the bombs is progress, but one that still buries children is not enough. It's a warning, and it demands enforcement, humanitarian access, and accountability.
That was UNICEF spokesperson James Elder. The United Nations has renewed its call for the protection of civilians in Sudan following the deaths of dozens of civilians due to escalating violence in several regions of the country, particularly in Darfur and Sennar states in central Sudan. More details with Jamal Salmani.
In a report by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, the international organization expressed its grave concern at the continuing suffering of civilians amid intensified fighting, stating that it had received reports of at least 19 civilians killed in a ground attack targeting the town of Jargira in North Darfur State. Meanwhile, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has stated that approximately 33.7 million people in Sudan caught up in a conflict between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support paramilitary forces will require humanitarian aid in 2026.
Almost 3 years of continuous violence have turned Sudan into the worst humanitarian crisis globally. An estimated 33.7 million people will need humanitarian aid this year, and 13.6 million people are displaced, making Sudan the largest displacement crisis in the world. Poor living conditions, overcrowding, lack of access to safe water, sanitation and hygiene, and a breakdown of routine immunization are fueling disease outbreaks. WHO calls for unrestricted and safe access to all areas of Sudan to restore access to health services, and we call for the protection of civilians from attacks, including health and humanitarian workers and patients, and we call for an end to the conflict by all parties in Sudan. As always, the best medicine is peace.
Growing insecurity has forced nearly 400 more civilians in Sudan to flee the towns of Kadugli and Dilin in South Kordofan state within 2 days. According to the International Organization for Migration, its teams on the ground estimated that the displacement is due to the deterioration in security conditions this week, emphasizing that these displaced persons had taken refuge in White Nile state. Kadugli and Dilin have been under siege by the Rapid Support paramilitary forces and their allies since the early months of the conflict more than 2 years ago.
At least 18 people were killed in a landslide following heavy rains in a locality in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. Heavy rainfall from Monday to Tuesday triggered a landslide in Kasherbir, a locality in North Kivu province, about 100 kilometers west of Goma. According to local sources, 18 bodies have been recovered and 11 people are still missing, while several houses were swept away. In total, 34 people were buried in the village, with many still trapped deep in the mud, raising fears of further landslides. According to a health source, 8 bodies were found in the same house, apparently members of the same family and visitors, and 5 injured people have been received at the health center, but searching for survivors is difficult due to stone and mud, as the mountainous region of eastern DRC, where rainfall is heavy, are regularly affected by deadly landslides. That was all for today's news bulletin. Stay tuned to Radio Algeria International.
Our Talk. A weekly program with guests activating in different fields.